Well, hello, you lovely ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest episode of Games Up Podcast. Hello, Mr. Crawford.
Hello.
Lost it a little bit at the end there. If you're wondering why I'm speaking in a Scottish accent, stay tuned to our Facebook this week. There's a real cool video going up there. Mr. Crawford, how are you?
I am doing well. Doing swell.
You're like, I'm slightly mesmerised, but I'm okay.
Confused but happy.
Have you had a good week?
Yes, I have.
Good.
Enjoyable.
Have you been playing much?
Yeah, a bit too much, as always. A little bit addicted to games, if you didn't know.
No, really?
Yes. And I'm going to talk about a game, the indie game of the week, that has stolen my week pretty much in like the last 2 weeks.
Your week and your heart. What is it?
It is Subnautica. Okay, so Subnautica is an underwater adventure game set on an alien ocean planet. The game starts with you in a big, huge spaceship being ejected on a lifepod as you crashes into the sea. And it's one of those survival games that I know some people are a little bit iffy on. You have to manage your oxygen, your food, and your water, collect resources, craft equipment. But one of the things that makes this really interesting compared to there's quite a few other survival games that are quite similar in setting. What makes this one interesting is there isn't an underwater survival game. There is no other type like that. And it's very fascinating to kind of explore the depths, the deep and murky blackness of the ocean, full of strange creatures, big and small, and wrecks of other spacecraft and ancient alien structures. When you start off, you can only dive down like limited amounts, but very quickly you get blueprints and resources, and you're able to build like stuff that lets you, like bigger air tanks that lets you go further. And you can develop an awesome looking base. Like the base building in it is really fun, really interesting, and like really deep as well. It's not one of these games where you kind of, instantly are able to build the biggest things. Like it takes a while, and you have to go further and further underground, further deeper to find the resources that let you build these cool bases. And eventually you get to build a submarine, which is amazing, and other vehicles. You can tell I'm interested. I say, and it like as we've spent like hours and hours on it, like it's very deep, unlike something like Minecraft, for example, where you're able to kind of build the biggest things. Well, it's true, you're able to build the biggest things quite quickly in those games, whereas this is something that you'll be playing it for a long
shit
time.
on, Mojang.
You'll be playing it for a long time before you're able to kind of like feel comfortable that you're like building the best things, and eventually you're able to build a rocket to leave. We haven't done that yet. I don't know what goes on. But yeah, so it's all in the pursuit to escape the island, or for those who are curious, find out what lies at the bottom of the ocean.
Very nice. I'm really liking your dramatic readings of these that you're starting to do each week. I'm really liking them.
Well, I'm trying to get better,
No, it's genuinely, it's really good.
Yeah. So the game left early access back in January. It's been getting updated ever since. It's available for the low price of £19.50 on Steam, and is planned for console release at some point soon.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is Subnautica, your indie game of the week, brought to you by Unknown Worlds Entertainment. Go and have a look at it. If you pick it up and enjoy it, tell them that we sent you. Not that they'll be like, oh, wow, Game's Up. We know those guys. But it'd be nice. Tell them that you know a good indie game. And thank you very much, Mr. Crawford, for bringing it to our attention.
You're welcome.
All right, ladies and gents, this week was absolutely packed with news. It's like buses, there is none, and then there's 17 of them all at once, so we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get into it. Fortnite Battle Royale has been announced for mobile, but the interesting kink to this one is that it's got PC crossplay. Now, PUBG is available on mobile as well, but it doesn't have this kind of crossplay. Fortnite Battle Royale does now crossplay with PCs. You have to opt into it, so you're not automatically going to be thrown in at the deep end with people who are far better at aiming than you, because that would absolutely destroy the user base. But it seems like an interesting little thing to do. I kind of think this is clever. Lewis, what do you think? You're more of a native PC player than myself.
I wonder how it's going to work for those people playing, because you have to think that people playing on other devices or mobile are going to suffer a little bit compared to PC players. So I have to assume that there's going to be some kind of hand-holding mechanics or something that makes it work a lot better. I think without it would be quite difficult. But it's interesting, and it's something I don't think we've ever seen before, unless it's something like Hearthstone. So this is very different kind of crossplay to have.
It's also nice to see crossplay being more of a norm these days. They announced this week that Fortnite is getting crossplay with PS4, Xbox One, and PC as well, I believe. And it's just nice to see that that's happening more often. More of it, please.
Yeah, definitely.
Then the next game coming from Remedy, the studio known for Max Payne and Quantum Break, is in production. It's entitled P7, which we assume is a working title, obviously. But interestingly, it's coming out on PS4.
Yeah. As we know, about a year ago, actually, to the day, Remedy and Microsoft kind of split their connections. And so this is the first one that's kind of coming out recently that's also going to be on PS4. And that's kind of interesting. It's trouble, I guess, because now it's kind of this next big title that could have been something else is now exclusive. Not exclusive. Now it's not exclusive, so it's available anywhere. And I'm just excited to see something from Remedy, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they kind of do something that's... I think when they were at Microsoft, they were kind of made to... Well, we can wonder about this, but they were kind of... I felt like they were made to innovate, whereas maybe in this one they won't feel as tempted to be forced to innovate, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I mean by that? Like, it felt like before that they were with something like Quantum Break. They are behind Quantum Break. I'm not being silly, right?
Yeah, they did Quantum Break.
Yeah, with something like Quantum Break, it felt like maybe that was kind of something that, it had to be innovative, whereas maybe they can release a game that's a little bit less innovative, but more enjoyable for general populace.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we know that Microsoft's really kind of pushed the you need the TV integration in this thing with Quantum Break. This is just another example of I don't know what the fuck Microsoft are doing. I don't know how this studio is independent considering the work they've done with them before. I don't know how this isn't a first party studio now. It's just genuinely baffling that they keep making these mistakes. But I hope the game that comes out of Remedy is good. They're a very talented studio.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to see more from them.
Next up, The Division 2 was announced. Also, Black Ops 4. A lot of people are taking the piss out of Black Ops 4 because it's got 4 I's rather than the Roman numeral IV. I think it's quite nice and funny. The Division 2 was announced, although it's worth bearing in mind that the studio that announced it, Ubisoft, and the studio that are making it, only really seemed to start staffing up for it earlier this year. So probably don't expect this one soon. Definitely expect more from it at E3.
Yeah, and... It was an interesting day. Obviously, we're going to talk about how there was a lot more that happened today. But, this news all came out on the same day.
Yes.
So, yeah, Division 2 announced. There's quite a lot of excitement for it because Division 1 released badly, as we all know. But since then, there's been progress as far as the community is concerned. Division 1's actually a really good game now. Mm-hmm. So they're hoping that they'll bring that forward and Division 2 will start off as a good game.
I think it's interesting that this is an example of one of those games where the user base has grown and we are seeing them make a sequel rather than just keep evolving that service.
I'll tell you something interesting.
Do so.
When you consider these games that have grown, the two that jump to mind immediately are both Ubisoft exclusives. I mean, not exclusive, they're Ubisoft games, is what I mean.
Oh god, yeah, of course. Sieges as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
So the two obvious examples of games that have grown are both Ubisoft games. So they're doing really well. Kind of something like Rainbow Six Siege, which we know could have just been dropped immediately. They've done a very good job of keeping that going.
I mean, to some extent, we really do have to thank the impending takeover for forcing them to keep,
maybe.
right by communities in a nasty way.
Yeah.
The next piece of news this week is that Bluepoint Games are working on a remaster. No.
Believe it or not.
Bluepoint Games are working on a remaster, believe it or not, as you say. They say it's larger in scope than Shadow of the Colossus, which is quite impressive because Shadow is quite a large-scoped game. Not really much more details than that. It could be anything. It could be going to anyone. The smart money is on Sony. Lewis, any kind of predictions on that one?
I do. I know you because we've already talked about that.
A little bit.
Yeah, so my money's on Demon Souls, the game that inspired Dark Souls, if you like. So the reason for that is specifically that they've said that this game's going to be bigger scope than Shadow of the Colossus, and Shadow of the Colossus was already like a big remake where everything was redone. So I think like something like Demon Souls, which has online features, obviously the servers went down recently, which is not necessarily a reason for it, but could be interesting. There could be a reason for that. But there's loads of things that could be. Some people have been saying that there's likely to be a Metal Gear Solid remake at some point. I just don't know.
I think of all the things it's going to be, it's not going to be Demon Souls. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think with the Dark Souls remaster out later this year, very soon in fact, and the big rumors that From Software are working on Bloodborne 2, I get the feeling, because I'm right in thinking that From didn't have as much input in Demon Souls.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
So I just get the feeling that like with an actual From game coming out in the next couple of months, i.e. the remaster, even though they're not doing it directly, and them probably working on Bloodborne 2, I reckon they probably wouldn't want to piss on their chips by doing a remake of Demon Souls as well. It seems like a lot all at once.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the rumors that I read when you told me about this today was Jak and Daxter, and I think that fits pretty well. PlayStation are not exactly struggling for hardcore game exclusives. They've got God of War, they've got Detroit, so on and so forth. But they found a lot of success in family nostalgia games like Crash, and we know pretty much that Spyro is coming. So I think they're probably going to put a little bit more eggs in that basket. I think we might see a bit more support for Knack or Little Big Planet, and I imagine that Jak and Daxter is on the way as well.
Yeah, I could see that actually. That is a fair point, is that they could make more use of that and trying to get that kind of audience. Yeah.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, it all happened. The big day of video game news ended, but starts here with a Valve press event. Now, for the most part, that's uninteresting, except that it was for a new piece of software. It's called Artifact, which I believe is a Dota 2 expansion, and in it, the head of Valve said that Valve are going to start shipping games again. They mentioned that they were working on another game as well as a couple of VR games, and to be fair, their announcement doesn't explain whether we should expect many, many more after that. But Valve are aware that they have been lacking in the software space, and they're working to rectify it. So Half-Life 3 confirmed, right?
Yes. Yes. Just to say, Artifact is a Dota 2 card game.
Okay, thank you for correcting me.
When it was announced among many groans. However, I think now that details have come out a bit more, there's a lot more interest in it than when it started. But when it was first announced, it looks really good. It has animations, and it looks like something that could actually stand up to something like Hearthstone. The interesting thing about Artifact is it's not free to play. So you have to buy the game. We don't really know how much it will cost, but there might be good reasons for that. I think one of the things that they want to do is make something like Dota where all the items can be acquired for free, but if you wanted a specific item, you might have to trade for it, or buy another player's card. So they'll have like a marketplace for it, but you'll be able to get everything for free with like a loot box thing, but like a free loot box thing, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so free card packs, but if you wanted like to get this specific card, you'd have to try and trade it or buy it from someone else. And I think that's kind of what they're going for. But yeah, so they also said, as you say, that they're releasing other games, and I don't think Half-Life 3 is ever going to happen, but mostly just because, like, I mean, if you go back to Half-Life 2, it's just not what we would call a AAA game now. It's a good game, don't get me wrong, but it's like, for them to make a Half-Life 3 would have to be something that's so out there for it to be popular. So I don't know.
I do think it will happen eventually. I just don't think eventually is right now. I do think somebody will get their hands on the license. Valve will need money. I don't think any kind of property ever truly sleeps. But I don't think it's happening soon.
Yeah, that's a...
Despite my various predictions.
E3 this year.
I do think we'll see Portal 3.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, we know they've been playing with the license recently with the Bridge Constructor games. We know that they've used it for VR. I could even see Portal being like Portal 3 being a Vive game exclusively.
Yeah, okay. I can see something like that.
I mean, we know that they're not afraid of putting their eggs into one basket like that, especially with the way they've developed hardware for Steam. I could kind of see that happening.
I think E3 this year, Orange Box 2, and it's Portal 3, Left 4 Dead 3. And there was rumors about Left 4 Dead 3, actually, now that I think about it.
There's like rumors about Left 4 Dead 3 every year, but there's heavy rumors as well. There's like concept art and all sorts of stuff that's supposedly leaked.
Yeah.
I like how you joked about like, oh, the orange box will happen, and then you're like, wow, oh shit, the orange box actually could happen.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if they replaced Team Fortress with Overwatch?
Oh.
So we started the big day of news with Valve announcing they're coming back to games, and then everything went a little bit mental. Nintendo announced a Direct the day before, and it started. It went out strong with some 3DS stuff, including a remake of Luigi's Mansion. As well as some odd-looking but cool-looking single-player DLC for Splatoon 2. Then they announced the South Park The Fractured But Whole was coming to the Nintendo Switch. If you haven't played The Fractured But Whole and you have a Switch, that's the perfect kind of Switch game. I would implore you to pick it up, assuming it runs well and so on and so forth when it comes out. You can get into those like little bite-sized battles and character leveling. That's like a perfect game for the Switch. Massive props there. And then stuff got very interesting. The first announcement was Undertale. This is big because Undertale is not on that many platforms, and the fact that Nintendo have it is a very good thing.
Definitely.
Then we finally got the announcement that Crash is not an exclusive to the PlayStation 4. The Insane Trilogy is coming to the Switch, and it was announced later that day that it's coming to the Xbox and PC as well. Lewis, I really want to get your thoughts on this.
Well, I'm happy to see that other people can play it, and I'm happy to see people that maybe didn't get to play it or don't have a PlayStation or new people. On Switch, though, that would be really cool, I think.
I agree that it would be great on Switch.
I'm sure you're super excited.
I'm so excited. And I'm excited for two reasons. I'm excited because I get those games back. Crash 3 is one of my favorite childhood games. I know it inside and out, and I'm going to lose so much time to it in July. I cannot wait for it.
It's a very good remake as well. It's worth saying, like, as someone who's kind of played and completed it, it's very faithful.
And I'm also really excited that a lot more people are getting to try this, because Crash was incredibly popular when it came out last year. And if that's anything to go by, it's going to sell as well, if not, around there on the Switch and PC and Xbox. And that's wonderful. I don't, if Crash ever gets another game, that'll be great. If it comes out on all the platforms exclusive, that'll be great. But the fact that these, like, also from an archivist standpoint, the fact that these games that meant a lot to people are now back again and will probably work better for longer, that's such a great thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll maintain my stance that I'm pissed off we haven't known about this since launch. I think exclusivity is crap. And I wanted to know your thoughts specifically, because I want to know if you had known this from day one, if you would have made a different choice on where you would have bought it.
Tough question. I buy lots of things for PC. You should know. So, no, I don't think I would have. I think this is the game that, for me, like, typifies like the PlayStation. It is the PlayStation game. And so for me, like, I think that kind of meant something to me, playing it with a PS4 controller. But also just playing it, like, there are games that I'm waiting for on PC. But usually if I am waiting on something for PC, it'll be something graphically. So at the moment I'm waiting for like Monster Hunter World to be on PC. Because that game looks really good on consoles, but then when it's on PC, it's going to look even better. But no, I would have still bought it on PlayStation. I bought that on day one, so it was something I definitely wanted. Fair enough.
Then stuff went a bit insane. We had the Direct came to an end. They said, that's it. Oh no, there's one more thing. And we watched a small teaser trailer where the Splatoon octopus children characters, I don't know what they're called, are shooting each other, they're running about, and then they look over. Squids, sorry. Are they called Inklings?
Yeah, Inklings.
There you go. They're running about, they're shooting each other. Everything goes dark. One of them looks up, and in their eye is the reflection of the Smash Brothers logo.
Yes.
So the game is confirmed for the Switch.
Yeah, amazing news.
Holy shit.
Now, we don't know all the details yet, whether this is like a port of the Smash game from before. People aren't too sure whether it's a completely new Smash or if it's like the old Smash redone, but there's lots of excitement over it, obviously. So for me, like, I think I've talked to you about this before, how I was a little bit concerned about Nintendo Switch. How they've had such a strong first year with bringing out like two of their biggest games that they could possibly bring out.
Mm-hmm.
That it left them in a position where, unless they had something in Q3, Q4 that was astonishing, then we were looking at maybe losing sales or maybe like not having quite the drive that it had the first year.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense, like if you can't ever really beat the year you release Zelda and Mario at the same time,
yeah,
or at least like throughout the year. So they needed something, and this is definitely something that's big enough to be a big driver. We know that something like Metroid Prime, maybe Bayonetta 3 are like in the distance. The Pokemon RPG is probably like 2019, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed something in for 2018, and this is definitely something that will be big enough to drive sales to it.
Yeah, fully agree. I guess I'm just super excited. I guess like I think it's
It might have Crash on it.
So this is we'll get into that in a second. I think it's super nice to see a company like Nintendo, who have struggled so much over the past couple of years. They are really listening to people, and huge props to them, because they have gone from a company that was genuinely facing some very dark video game times to a company that can do this kind of thing, and that's fantastic. That's one of the things I love about the video game industry. I think this is going to make for some super interesting predictions at E3. I've got a couple already in mind, but there's been a lot of rumors about people that might appear in Super Smash Bros. For Switch for a while, and two of the people that have been discussed were included in this direct. So as you said, Crash has been a bit of a rumor for a while, especially since the thing came out last month about Crash appearing on Switch, confirmed by a retailer. The other one is Undertale.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's been some fairly big rumors about that, and Undertale would work perfectly on Smash Brothers.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that the Smash games are really good at doing is that they always have like a few levels dedicated to every character, like music dedicated to that character, and then like kind of the movesets or the interesting things that those characters do in the games.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I picked up the Wii U Super Smash Brothers that features Snake in it, and it features Sonic in it, and like they have like really cool dedicated levels. You kind of get like a nostalgia trip while playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be really excited to see what they can do for, say, Crash, or even in Undertale, or whatever they have in it. I get so excited to see like unique content made for a different game. So I think the best one actually is in for Snake's character, in Metal Gear Solid's character. They have like unique codec calls, like with the voice actors. It's more unique content, but for like the Smash game, and I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah, I Smash has been. I mean, Smash is one of the premier fighting games in that they really take the time to detail each character and why they're different and why you should choose them over something else in terms of not just the way they play, but their aesthetic and their atmosphere, and that's a very important thing. And whatever Nintendo bring to it this time is going to be great. There was I believe we saw in the shadow, I think we saw Zelda. Sorry, not Zelda. Link from Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I get the feeling Mewtwo was in there as well, although that might be me talking shite a bit. Nonetheless, it was such an amazing day of news to have all of this at once. What was your favourite piece of news from it?
Definitely the Smash Bros. Thing. I think it's one of the games that, you know, I'm kind of on the fence about getting, you know, the Switch myself, because I'm kind of like looking at the big games it's got, and I'm less interested in the side stuff, but I am really interested in the big exclusives that it can bring. Like, this is one of the ones that drives me through
it. Smash, I'm kind of conflicted because, in a practical sense, Crash was my biggest piece of news. I'm so excited for that game. But in like an industry-wide sense, Smash was the biggest piece of news that day. To know that Nintendo are paying attention like that, and they are genuinely lining their ducks up to compete with Sony. They've outdone Xbox at this point.
Annoys me, actually, though. A bit of news that annoyed me at this thing.
Ooh.
The Luigi's Mansion remake is a 3DS game.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, as someone who loves... I literally replayed that game like 3 weeks ago. I replayed that game. And actually, I still am. I need to complete it. But, like, I would love to be able to play that on a new console. Or just be able to play it while sitting down. So, I mean, like... I understand that they're still trying to drive 3DS. I just kind of wish that they were kind of just putting it on Switch as well.
I think a lot of people have missed something with that announcement. I had a lot of people saying the same thing. Why is it just a 3DS game? And I can understand it if people love that game, but I think that people have forgotten that we're still expecting word on Virtual Console, and that will make a big difference to stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right then. So that was all the good news that came out of that day. But towards the end of the week, the middle and the end of the week, we had some less great news, and that was that following a number of horrible tragedies that have taken place in America, lots and lots of pieces of culture and entertainment have come under inspection in terms of what they promote, in terms of violence and so on and so forth. And the latest one is video games. Although it seems like Donald Trump is taking more action against video games than the rest. He's holding a summit in the week that you're listening to this podcast with supposedly members of the video game industry, and there are a few who have been confirmed, as well as opposers to video games from his cabinet and various politicians. This is going to be a big thing for video games, whatever comes out of it, because games have been blamed for violence for many, many years, and this only continues to perpetuate that look at the industry. So we thought we would ask in this week's topic of the week, is he wrong to put the magnifying glass on video games? Do we need a summit on video game violence? Lewis, tell me what you think about this.
Oof. You know, I think, like, as someone who's played all the violent video games, and enjoys them a lot, you know, like, I it would be bad on my side to describe some of the things that I've kind of done in games, but one of the important and, like, big things that you always have to say is that I'm also, like, the softest guy you'll meet. You know,
he is. He's like Lotso Hugging Bear from Toy Story 3, and he smells like strawberries as well.
Wait, wasn't he evil?
Oh wait, yeah, shit. Sorry, genuinely forgot that.
Yeah, but no, like, you know, and I think, and it definitely, like, the idea that video game violence, like, softens your view of violence is only really true to, like, video game violence or, like, media violence. You know, like, if you watch lots of horror movies, it's easier to watch a horror movie, but it definitely doesn't, like, soften the blow of it in real life. I think that's the most important part of it for me. I think in all this is that the idea that it softens it and makes it easier to, say, do something yourself just isn't true as far as I'm concerned.
I think before I go any further, I'll make it clear, and I guess we both should have done this, but I'll make it clear that I don't like Trump in the slightest. I think the man is a clown of a politician. But I'm kind of conflicted on this one. Lewis, me and you have had talks before about violence in the media, and I do think that the media sometimes goes a bit far. I do think that there are things that don't need to be shown. I do think there are things where you feel they got away with it more than it was deserved. And there is definitely an argument to be made that if you show things enough, it becomes a lot easier to watch them, and there becomes a sense of familiarity with them, pardon me. I think in the case of somebody who has another factor, i.e. Access to guns, i.e. bad parenting, i.e. some kind of mental condition, i.e. a society that encourages violence in perhaps young men, especially those who struggle to be emotionally intelligent, i.e. a society that encourages young men to not be emotionally intelligent. I think anything that promotes an extreme, i.e. drugs, drinking, cigarettes, violence, sex, whatever it is that person's crutch, can fairly easily be put under the magnifying glass because it's the thing that's the loudest about it. But I don't think it's necessarily the loudest thing that's always the most dangerous. I do think media goes a long way. I think video games, and this is going to sound a little bit controversial, but I think video games go less far in that you have the choice to do it. I think movies get away with a lot more violence and a lot more, certainly in recent years, than perhaps they need to, because you're kind of, if you're watching a film, you're very passive in that situation, and you either watch it or you don't. There's no choice in it, there's no moral ambiguity to it. It is there and it is happening. I watched Kill Bill recently. I was forced to watch Kill Bill recently, and it struck me that at the time that Kill Bill came out, it was this horrendous poster child for movie violence. It was awful and abhorrent, and there were parents all over America who were saying, ban this sick filth. And I watched it and thought, it's not really all that violent. It's pantomime-ish. It doesn't strike me as violent as Game of Thrones does, as violent as a number of the films that I've watched in recent years does. Logan, for example, is 4 times more violent than that, and it wasn't even, argued about in the same way. So I think that there's a case to be made that anything that's violent has to be responsible for being violent. But I think to put the magnifying glass on that and that alone, especially in a country with the problems that America has, is a bit of a one-sided way to have that discussion.
Yeah, I can see that. It's worth saying that the meeting has taken place already.
Has it?
Yeah.
Bollocks.
It's all right. Though we haven't really got anything from Trump's side as to how the meeting went. They've released kind of details, and some people have talked about what happened. One of the problems is that in the meeting he had no one that was kind of a video game expert, but also on that side of kind of limiting it. It was literally people from the video games industry versus kind of conservative, censorship types. Mm-hmm. And it's worth saying that I think the people that were there made a good deal of saying, we have studies that show that there isn't links as far as science is concerned. The First Amendment, the freedom of speech, and also the let me just find it. Oh, and also that there already is an age rating system, and if you abide by the age rating system, then someone who's young shouldn't actually have access to games that are violent. A lot of it's on the parents who buy GTA for their kid. In my mind,
we've had that discussion before about how video games don't necessarily make you violent, but if you're worried they do, you have the power as a parent to do something about it. Take interest in what your kids are playing, play it with them, ask them questions, say if you don't think it's right, explain why. Don't hide yourself away from it. So in America, they had the summit on video games. In the UK, we had something much more deep and much more introspective, and it's breakfast television, and it's called This Morning, and I'm taking the piss. It's shallow and fucking horrendous. And they had a mother on who was saying, I don't like Fortnite. Fortnite is making my child violent. The loot boxes are a problem. I think it's causing a problem. And genuinely, in a lot of the video game groups I was in, there has been a lot of talk this week about, is Fortnite a problem, so on and so forth. And to me, my immediate response to that is, and I will say I didn't watch it because I won't give This Morning the views. They can fucking do one. But my immediate response to that is, if you think that Fortnite is a problem, I can almost certainly, without listening to that, and that this is a stereotype, but I can almost certainly guarantee that the mother hasn't played it. Play it along with the child. Find out why the child enjoys it. And firstly, if you're letting your child, I think Fortnite's a 12 or a 15. is he the right age for it? Do you know that there's an age rating? Why do you find it violent, and how does that interact with how you play it? It's like if somebody said, I don't like the way you're cooking that steak, but rather than get involved and try to cook a steak themselves, explain how to do it, how to season it, how you test if the meat's right, they just say, no, 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 get rid of it, do it again. It's just a dumb way to have an argument. There's no constructive criticism or feedback there. It's just blindly arguing at a brick wall. And it seems like such a shame that we're still doing this.
Yeah, totally. And I think like one of the big things for me is just that like be aware of, as you say, be aware of what your child's playing. You know, be aware of like what they're up to. Maybe you wouldn't even necessarily need to play it yourself as much as kind of just know what they're doing and maybe talk to them about it when they're playing it. Like I don't really believe in that kind of in it having an effect in like that negative of a way. But I do think that if you do believe in that kind of negative effects, then, you know, spending time with your child while they're playing will help. Even if it's just kind of going like, you know, you shouldn't, I don't know, shoot someone in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heavy topic.
Yeah, but I think heavy in an important way. One of the reasons I wanted to have the topic was when I saw the names of the people who were on the board. I thought it's a shame that those people are representing all of video games. And it's not because, you know, they aren't qualified. There are some very, very good people on the board. I was disappointed to see that somebody from ZeniMax was on the board because the Trump family has a large investment in ZeniMax, unfortunately. But I think it's such a shame that it was major AAA publishers that had the voice in it. I would have loved to see some and obviously this is not indicative of Trump's study on games or his presidency as a whole, but I would have loved to see some representation from somebody like Steve Gaynor from the Fulbright Company, or an indie company who were doing something different, or the guys who made Yarny from EA, or Ori and the Blind Forest from Microsoft, the kind of people the independent people in the industry who are actually making a case for it being more than just guns and cars.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. I was wondering a little bit about your take, because I mean, like, it is on violent video games, and maybe the reason why these people have been called is because they're making a distinction between, say, the indie and the violent.
Yes, but and this is more me having a go at Trump, I suppose. But as somebody who, I mean, he didn't know until the entire industry brought it up to him that there was an age rating. Again, this is a personal prejudice, I suppose, but I feel in myself that it's coming more from a place of ignorance or a lack of desire to represent those kind of voices in the discussion than a fair call for purely violent video games.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you think we need to do you think we need to do more about violence in games?
No, I think like the age ratings exist for a reason, and you know, I think I do think that there are games out there that are very violent, and I'm not overly bothered by that. But I can see why, you know, certain people might be. I think that like we can only do so much until the point where you're kind of limiting everything. And I think if there has to be a age rating that says like this is something that's extreme on top of that, then it'll only work if people actually listen to it. And I think, like, as you say, one of the big problems is people buying their games for kids that are too young.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if the discussion needs to happen, I don't think it needs to be done on a government level. I think it's not the job necessarily of a government to control entertainment or control what entertainment does. I think if fans or consumers, and if politicians as consumers want to say, this isn't right, I'm not buying into this, I think that's a different thing, and I think that's a very right thing to do. I think it's very upstanding for an audience of something to have standards of what is acceptable within that medium. But I think I don't really think it's Donald Trump's job to be saying video games should be less violent or more violent. I think he has bigger fish to fry, especially with this situation.
Yeah.
Cool. I thought that was a really good handling of that topic, I would say. I mean, in all seriousness, we don't do heavy topics like that very often. There isn't a great deal of them in the video game industry. There is a lot more. There's a lot more kind of light-hearted. Oh, Smash Brothers is out this week topic, and I think in a way it's kind of refreshing to have something serious and kind of nasty to talk about with the games industry. It's necessary in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. But, ladies and gentlemen, our opinions are only two of many. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that we need more or less censorship in video games? Do you think that Trump is right to call this meeting? Do you think lots of things? We'd always love to hear from you because you're listeners. You're cool people. If you do want to get in touch, if you want to interact with us, you can do it in all sorts of places. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, and we are on YouTube at Games Upcast on all of them. You can comment here, comment there, comment everywhere, tweet us, all that jazz. If you do enjoy the show, you can feel free to like it and subscribe to it. That means that you'll never miss a show that we put out, and we get out in front of a few more people, which we greatly appreciate. We go out every Monday at 6:30 p.m. on YouTube and much earlier that day on iTunes. Lewis, what will you be playing this week?
Oh, that's a question.
Asking the hard ones.
You just asked me on the spot, and I'm just lost.
I'm sorry.
I'm just wasting time. No. So I bought the God of War 3 remaster, so I'm playing through that.
Very nice.
And I'm going to be playing through the Horizon Zero Dawn DLC. I just got my platinum trophy on Bloodborne, just saying. That's 100% like everything completed. I'm just proud of myself.
Clearly.
So no more Bloodborne ever, because now I'm fully completed. There's no point.
PS Plus?
Yeah. So, going through the DLC.
Very nice. This week I finished Overcooked. So that's out of the way, and I plan to sit back and enjoy the last 2 episodes of Telltale's Batman. So I've heard very good things.
I need to get that there as well.
Oh, have you got it now?
Yeah. I just need to play through it.
We should do like a review. That'd be cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, we should do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to know what you're playing, and we'd love for you to have a good week. We'll see you next week, and until then, the game's up.